Ladies and gentlemen, this press briefing is part of the Regional Dialogue on Domestic Resource Mobilisation. This regional dialogue is being held under the theme Enhancing Domestic Resource Mobilisation through Reformed Global Financial Architecture and Prudent Fiscal and Debt Policy Management. To get us started, I request that Mr. Aloysius Chitengo, coming from Siatini, the host of this very important and timely conversation, to get us started with us setting the scene, but also sharing key issues, what policy tools can be deployed to salvage the situation, but also what innovations do we need to undertake and policy reviews.
Thank you very much, Harvard, and thank you, the media. I'm Aloysius Chitengo. I work for Siatini, Uganda as a program coordinator, financing for development. What transpired from the engagement we had since we started yesterday were the fact that we need to consider tax as a tool for development, but also the only sustainable source of revenue which can enable African countries, regardless of where you are coming from, to stand beyond the challenges of the reducing aid and the increasing burden of debt to African countries. And we came to realize that there are several challenges that are hindering revenue mobilization in Africa, and among the RECs that are represented here, the fact that even as it is now, we have not achieved the set target under the East African Monetary Union of tax to GDP ratio of 25%. We are still dwindling between 12 to 15 tax to GDP ratio. And we have come to realize that there are several challenges which are contributing to such a factor. And some of the challenges include the issues of weak tax administration, which is facilitating revenue leakage in one way or the other. We have also realized that there is a challenge of harmful tax expenditure, which is not commensurate to the what we anticipate to get from the tax incentives we are giving out while we are attracting investors from the different group. But also we have come to realize that there is a race to the bottom within the tax incentives and exemptions we are giving, in the way that we don't have a uniform system in terms of the incentives we are awarding within the region. You might find that while other countries are giving maybe a 10-year tax exemptions, the other ones are giving incentives within the free zones, the economic zones, giving deemed VAT and the others. So you find that while we are trying to have tax harmonization within the EAC, we end up attracting, making investors to come into the country based on what we are giving alongside what we provide or what we intend to achieve as member states within the EAC. But also we came to realize that within the EAC setting, we don't have effective coordination in the way we are trying to handle issues of domestic or tax revenue mobilization. We have agreed upon to some areas of interest of how we can harmonize, but also even starting from the trade arrangement on the common external tariffs. We have also found that within even the common external tariffs and the bands agreed upon, members of the EAC have moved ahead to award, to seek for stay of application and duty remissions, which is an indication of the failure to recognize the harmonization spirit, but also even the integration which we want to achieve using tax as a tool for development. But also we have come to realize that there is limited citizen engagement in the tax policy processes, and we can also bear witness of what happened when you look at what happened in Kenya with the Gen Z situation on the financial bill, but also even when it came to Uganda. Maybe for the Kenya it was more of a protest, which was even somehow maybe intense, but when it came to Uganda, we came to realize that there were also traders' demonstration of closing the shops because of the failure to understand how the government reached a conclusion of applying or requesting them to use the IFRIS. So you find that the revenue or the fiscal policy in terms of tax revenue is not at the level we think that would be for East African country members and the SADC members to be able to generate adequate revenue to be able to finance their own development. When it comes to issues of illicit financial flows, we have come to realize that even now we have not agreed on how we can be able to tackle the challenge of illicit financial flows. Looking at the measures around, even when it comes to the double taxation agreements, we have different ways of the DTAs we have signed with the different countries on how we can harmonize on the way we are supposed to treat the investors in our country. For instance, when it comes to Uganda as a country, we have the withholding tax of 15%, but when you look at the double taxation treaties and agreements we have signed with different countries, we have reduced it to almost 5%, which makes it difficult for us to generate revenue. And you can ask yourself, if you are charging 5% or withholding tax on dividend, where is the 95% going to go, and who is going to tax that? So you find that even that one is making us to lose a lot of revenue, and that's why we are looking at the alternative of changing the global financial architecture in the way that we are calling for reforming the global financial architecture, putting all at least powers in the UN Convention to ensure that some of these challenges are addressed, for us to be able to have at least a minimum standard when it comes to issues of taxation of multinationals that are doing business in Uganda, that are doing business in Kenya, that are doing business in Tanzania, and across the African countries. That's why we have the African group championing the side of the African countries to ensure that at least there is a voice when it comes to issues of taxation of the multinational corporations that are doing business in the source countries, because the challenge has been that when you look at the current setting of taxation of multinationals, the issue has been on the resident-based rather than the source-based. And for us, we are saying that currently we need to change the status and ensure that we are taxing the multinationals regardless of the double taxation treaties. We should tax them from the source, where economic activities are taking place, where value is created, and where it comes to defined value, we should ensure that our countries are taxing the multinationals at the source. And this is what the UN Tax Convention is trying to bring on board for us to ensure that we are not losing, because we need revenue currently. But also we have come to realize that as we are waiting for the UN Convention, the multilateral arrangement, other countries can guide to implement what is possible in terms of the unilateral measures as we are waiting for the other bigger achievement which we want to see. So when it comes to tax and tax issues, we're saying that we should address the challenges within the fiscal policy, and we shouldn't stop at collecting revenue, but also ensure that the revenue collected is used effectively for the development of our nation, but also ensure that services are shared with the people so that we can check on the problem of tax apathy among the taxpayers, but also see the value for money. Because the aspect of financing for development doesn't leave out the aspect of debt. We have come to realize there are several challenges related to debt acquisition and debt management within the African countries, issues related to unfavorable financing terms that are given under the debt, the persistent costs and the overrun due, which is considered under the debt we are acquiring, the low absorption of the debt we acquire. We have come to realize that even our countries are going ahead to borrow when they don't have ready projects to implement the projects which we are borrowing money for. And we end up paying commitment fees because we have not settled the requirement for us to go ahead to implement the project. And this one is impacting on the revenue we are generating, or the taxes we are generating to be able to finance our development. So we find that all those are impacting on the way we are generating our revenue, but also even how we expect the revenue we are generating to provide the services to the people. And we have also realized that there is a weak asset maintenance and repair in the systems, because most of the debt we are acquiring as African countries is more for the infrastructure development. But you find that even when we do projects related to that, we have failed to allocate, not only maintain the standard of the project agreed upon, but also ensuring that the money we get, we save some money for maintenance, because you find that some of the projects that are being implemented or put in place, they take just few years and they get, can I say, unable even to facilitate what intended to be facilitated in terms, they wore out. And you don't have even funds to maintain them. You go ahead and seek for supplementary budget, which is causing problems to Uganda. So for us, we think that when it comes to how we can manage the debt we are acquiring, we must ensure that we have ready projects, we have systems in place, and we ensure that the money we acquire in terms of debt is put to good use, and ensure that there is value for money, and be able to see that even when we are trading off in terms of services where we are paying debt, people can see that really this is something which we foregone in terms of acquiring the debt. We have also come to realize that currently there is a challenge in terms of the credit rating agencies in rating how we are performing, and we think that maybe as we are trying to change the status quo of the existing global financial, economic, and tax architecture, to ensure that maybe we can have an African credit rating methodology, not like an agency per se, but an agency, but having the methodologies that are acceptable not only for African countries but also across the world. Those standards should be acceptable for the members within Africa, but also even across, because the aspect of debt cannot be ignored in the way that as we are doing developmental and aspired and achieving the aspired development and as even service delivery, we can also consider that the debt we acquire does not put us in the bad situation when it comes to our creditworthiness with our lenders, and ensure that at least there is a minimal way. And for us, we think that even where possible, we can have an appellant body where if the rates are not generally favorable to us, we can run and say, really, can we revisit this rating so that we are not put in the situation of unable to pay our debt in terms of rating our creditworthiness, and yet we need finances to finance our development. So in terms of the recommendations coming from the above, we think that when it comes to issues of the tax incentives and exemptions which we award to the foreign or to the investors, I want to say that we are not only, someone was saying yesterday that maybe the tax incentives and exemptions are only awarded to the foreign investors, and I think we got clarification that when you look at our tax laws, there are provisions that are open, and we need to ensure that really our even domestic investors do benefit. But regardless of who is benefiting, we are saying that we should have a cost-benefit analysis when it comes to the tax incentives we are giving out to ensure that there is value for money in the incentives we are giving out, but also ensure that we are removing those so-called redundant tax incentives and exemptions that are costing us in terms of revenue we are expecting to get, because the trade-off should be commensurate in the way that if you are giving out tax incentives and exemptions, you should ensure that if the trade-off was employment creation, we see employment creation. If the trade-off was to use raw materials from the East African countries in terms of raw materials, you ensure that at least a percentage of raw materials is used by the factory, by the company which is benefiting from the tax incentives and exemptions which we award to the beneficiaries of the tax incentives we are giving out. When it comes to issues of trying to track on the aspect of the aspect of illicit financial flows, for us we think that we need to have a mandatory public beneficial ownership depository where we can at least see who is a beneficiary, because we have come to realize that even when it comes to the passive income like dividend, interest, royalties and others, most of the time we don't know the beneficiaries. So we think that having a depository of the beneficial owners can give us an opportunity to assess the data, to be able to get to know who is supposed to pay his fair share within that jurisdiction where that revenue is generated. But also even having an access to data, because we have come to realize that data is needed for comparison purposes when it comes to issues of addressing transfer pricing rules, where we have the arm's length principle, which requires countries to base on the market rate for the services you are giving out. So we think and request that we should have an access to data, which we as civil society think that the call under the UN Tax Convention of having it housed at the UN will give an opportunity to the tax administrators from our countries to be able to have data to inform the work we do when it comes to tracking down the issues of IFFs and profit shifting, which is taking a lot of taxes out of our country. But also, as we are waiting for multilateral setting, we think that member countries or member states should terminate and renegotiate the double taxation treaties that are not favorable to us, and ensure that we have the source-based taxation than resident-based taxation for African countries to be able to tax the multinationals at source than the resident approach, which is the current state of play when it comes to taxation of the multinationals that are doing business within the country. We also propose and think that we need to adopt a regional public debt sustainable framework to ensure issues of transparency, but also having clear indicators, because when you look at what is happening now, member countries, for instance, I think it is even crossing the EAC and SADC. For instance, the EAC, we have the debt ceiling of 50%, but member states have even changed the goalpost to ensure that they remained within the debt ceiling of debt to GDP ratio. So we think that the indicators should be harmonized, and member states should stick to the indicators than changing the goalpost when it comes to ensuring that there is debt sustainability. And for us to be able to remain within the remain creditworthiness in one way or the other, but also reducing on the implication of debt to revenue mobilization. As I'm trying to wind up, I cannot ignore the aspect of ensuring that we strengthen our tax administration by embracing the digital tax administration within the across the board within the EAC, but also embracing cooperation among the member states to ensure that there is that information flow and exchange when it comes to the potential taxpayers within the different jurisdictions within the REX or the blocks like SADC and COMESA, and ensure that we tackle the issue of cracking down on the informal sector, on the informality within the region or the regions, because we have come to realize that there are a number of informal sectors and different countries are applying different ways of tackling the informal sector. But we have come to realize that even with that provision or with those provisions, the number of informal sector has remained huge, and our tax administrators are not failing to tax effectively the informal sector. We as civil society, I think we need to ensure that we engage effectively when it comes to issues of tax incentives that have led to revenue leakages, because we have been doing it. So we need to intensify our work while giving alternatives to the governments and even engaging the line ministries, but also even the bodies across our REX or regional economic blocks, but also continuing to have research and alternative proposals to inform the issues of the exemptions, but also issues of debt acquisition and debt management. Because at the end of the day, if we leave it to the technical person, as civil societies, we are losing out, and at the end of the day, we will be blaming our technical people. And yet now we are looking at opening up on how we can ensure that the voices of the civil society, the voices of different stakeholders, do shape the fiscal policy of our nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aloysius Chitengo, Financing for Development Coordinator at Siatini, Uganda. Now is the time for us to really deepen this conversation, and I know the rest of the panelists will reinforce some of the issues that he has already shared. It's been quite a lot that he has shared, but he was setting the scene. I hope we appreciate it, that a lot is going on, and our predicament requires us to really interrogate quite a number of issues. And one of the most pressing challenges of our time is debt. So that's where I would like to bring in Ms. Diana Muchoge from the African Forum and Network on Debt and Development. But specifically, as she paints the picture around debt in both the EAC and SADC sub-regions, I kindly request her to also share a bit about the model law on public finance management in the Southern African Development Corporation. What best practices exist that we can be able to adopt and at the same time salvage the situation. Thank you. Over to you. You have 8 full minutes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. So just following up from what Aloysius has shared, we have noted that the decline and stagnation of domestic resource mobilization within the East Africa community has been contributed to by various factors, including the issue of increasing debt, especially in the East Africa community region. We have noted a significant increase, over 50% between 2018-2019 and 2023-2024 for Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. And of course, we do know that South Sudan also has very high levels of debt. Additionally, we have noted, and even from the very latest UNCTAD report of 2024, that citizens in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and of course South Sudan, DRC, Burundi, shoulder heavy debt servicing costs of around 23 billion US dollars, and this is for this financial year 2025. And therefore, debt servicing crowds out critical sectors such as health, education, and social protection. Increased borrowing, especially from external sources, has increased within the EAC communities, which risks currency depreciation, crowding out of private investment in the region. And of course, governments borrowing heavily to finance their expenditure tends to crowd out private investment by increasing interest rates. High increase in debt levels has also led to downgrading of majority of East Africa community member states because of credit ratings, which results in high borrowing costs and limited access to external financing. The regional integration process in East African community has provided an opportunity for furthering public finance management reforms amongst the member states. And we've noted that East African Monetary Union Protocol was signed in 2013, and it requires member states to harmonize the public finance management laws and practices. So we've noted, of course, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Uganda have adopted new public finance management laws, which of course looks at budgeting and reporting requirements, specifying budget calendars, and enhancing timelines of presentation of the budget to Parliament. Therefore, PFM laws are very important because they look at transparent, effective, and more efficient management of government revenues, including public debt management. So the SADC region has shown us a great example through the adoption of the Public Finance Management Law, and this was done in 2023. And the model law serves as a benchmark and guiding legal instrument for national parliaments to reinforce their domestic legal framework on public financial management. Additionally, the model law ensures that the SADC national parliaments are enabled to conduct their legislative, budgetary, and oversight functions for public finance management in a way that is transparent, efficient, and responsive to the needs of SADC citizens. And the model law actually provides laws relating to taxation, relating to public service, relating to debt, and also relating to corruption. So the model law looks at legally binding debt ceilings, public debt strategy, annual debt statement that is tabled in Parliament, and scrutiny of borrowing decisions. So the model law serves as an example to the East Africa community in terms of ensuring that parliaments are enabled to conduct their legislative, budgetary, and oversight functions. And as a good example, the Republic of Zambia, after adopting the model law on the SADC model public financial management law, they've been able to come up with a national debt legislation in Zambia, which has enabled prudent management of public debt, but also transparency and accountability in the governance of public finances. So this is a very good benchmark for the East Africa community for the increase of domestic resource mobilization, for them to be able, for the East Africa community to be able to have its own public finance management legislation, which will be a regional legislation modeled after the model law of the SADC, which will ensure public debt management across the region. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There is one thing that comes out clearly, that we are in a deep quagmire, but would like to see whether institutions have the capacity to lift us out of this bottomless pit. So this is where I bring in Miss Lillian Alex from the East Africa Community Civil Society Organizations Forum, EACSOF, to speak to the issue of regional institutions like the East African Legislative Assembly and the oversight role of those institutions, respective national assemblies, the parliaments, but also institutions like the East African Court of Justice, the East African Community Secretariat. Where are they standing? Do they have the capacity to contribute to salvaging the situation? And how are they functioning? What do we need to do in order to strengthen their capacity to deliver on their mandates? Thank you. You have 8 full minutes.
Thank you. As I already introduced myself, my name is Lillian Alex. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at the East African Civil Society Organizations Forum and an umbrella body for the civil society in East Africa region. And just a reminder, or maybe a highlight, we work within all the 8 East African Partner States, where we have national chapters that coordinate most of the activities of civil society engagement with the East African community. In regards to the question that Herbert has posed to me, I would answer as say, yes, the East African community has the capacity and is capable of actually addressing most of these issues that have been highlighted. But the reality on the ground is a bit different and controversial to the reality that is on the documents. That is, considering that we have the East Africa Community Treaty that calls for commitment of the EAC Partner States in regards to harmonizing the investment provisions in the community. But then again, the practice that we're seeing currently is becoming more challenging to have this commitment achieved in the region. And this brings to the conversation on the concerns that civil society have in the East African community. And one being, is the community really committed to achieving most of the provisions that they've signed to in the East African Community Treaty? And we are seeing that there's a lot of challenges in terms of harmonization that has already been alluded to. When you speak of investment, the investment protocol that we have with the community, we're still facing challenges. That is where we have partner states that have not yet harmonized some of these policies that have been passed. But that is not even the only challenge that is there, but we also seen the challenge of commitment. We have seen a number of policies that have been passed, a number of regulations and bills that have been passed, some advocated by the civil society, such as the gender bills, such as the youth policy bills, but we're not seeing that practice happening in reality. We don't see most partner states domesticating most of these bills. The implementation has become a myth, if I had to say, and so we are seeing a lot of challenges over the years into seeing how best we'll have most of these bills well implemented by the partner states. So I think as civil society, we call upon more urgency action taken towards commitment of most of these policies passed at the East African community, but also taking into consideration the various institutions that we have. And so this brings in another challenge that we're facing currently, and as civil society, we ought to also speak to that, and it's the challenge of resilience. And as resilience, I don't speak of civil society resilience only, but I also want to shed the light to the resilience of the community itself. I've heard from the previous speakers speak about the aftermath of the COVID and the challenges of the global dynamic that we're facing currently. And this brings the attention to now, how are our countries responding to that? I like that we're discussing on how we use our tax, that is the emphasis of using our domestic resources to actually push development within our partner states, within our region. But are we there yet? Are we actually working towards that? Looking at the current global dynamics where we are seeing donors and developing countries cutting funds of support and aid to the developing countries, where does that leave us as a community? Are we already utilizing the tax that we are collecting to actually foster our own driven agendas within the countries and within the region? And so resilience is becoming quite a challenge in the fact that also in the region we are seeing the challenges, that is the backlash. We have currently or maybe let's start this way. We began with 3 partner states in the East African community, and currently we have 8 partner states in the East African community. But we're not seeing the full commitment that we set out to achieve as a community, where we have some of the partner states failing to even commit or contribute to the annual subscription of the community. And this has become quite a challenge that is giving us a clear picture. Are we also capable of using our own domestic resources to support and to ensure that the community is standing, to support and ensure that we achieve most of the policies, or I'd say most of the agendas that we have set out to achieve as a community? And so this also is becoming quite a challenge, that learning from what has been discussed. Are we sharing the debts, or are we dealing with the debts individually? And so we see that as a community, we are also staggering, I would say, currently. And this is bringing to a challenge to failure of some of the institutions within the community to actually sit and address some of these challenges. You've spoken of the East Africa Legislative Assembly. We have seen a challenge the whole of this year where the Assembly was not able to convene. And it has taken them long to actually convene. I think the first half of the year 2025, the East Africa Legislative Assembly did not convene, did not hold sessions, and it was necessitated to have these sessions during the budgetary, which was also happening online. And so we are seeing these as some of the challenges that are coming up due to resource scarcity. And also currently we also seeing the challenges from the sectoral councils. Various sectoral councils, such as the Legal and Judicial Affairs Council, has failed to sit. In 2023, they did not completely convene, and that left a number of bills pending and a number of other actionable activities not happening. And so we are seeing this is also becoming a challenge, and as civil society we are also frustrated because we don't have somewhere an avenue to present most of our issues, or court to listen, because again, even the court itself is not in position, or is not able to sit and convene and listen to some of these claims. And so this brings in the bigger question, as has been discussed. Are we also capable to use our own domestic resources to support or finance most of the activities we set to achieve? And I think we need to go back to the drawing board. That's all I can say. Given the current global dynamics and the changes that we are seeing, and I take it from a conversation or a comment that was raised yesterday, there is no international institution that is actually going to save our financial situations within our partner states or within the region in this instance. We need to work on our own to see how we save our own financial crisis. We need to work on our own to see how we work through these debts that are coming up. I think it's high time we wake up and see how we work for our own people. And by we, I mean we as citizens, I mean the governments of our countries. We need to see how best we find solutions within our own resources, because then again, we will be more dependent on the international grants, which is not going to be happening over the years. And we are seeing a huge shift in terms of aid, a huge shift in terms of support, and that is both to civil society but also to our national governments. So I call upon all the partners, the civil societies, and also our governments to take note on how we go back to the drawing board to ensure that we use our own domestic resources to fund and finance most of our activities set out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Lillian Alex, the CEO of East African Community Civil Society Forum, EACSOF, for making the case for the need to strengthen institutions, regional institutions, domesticate regional frameworks and policies, but also re-echoing the issue that DRM is the answer, because we need internal solutions. They are sustainable, reliable. You can know how much to mobilize. We know that our revenue institutions have targets, and some of them can be achieved if we address various issues, including the leakages. But also what is coming out strongly is the fact that it seems to be a deadlock situation. And there is a musician called Harry Belafonte. The popular song, "There's a Hole in My Bucket." And the song really speaks to the current situation. The issue of leakages has come to the fore, and the issue of corruption as one of the forms of leakages is also coming out strongly. Uganda loses a lot of money to corruption. Kenya loses a lot of money to corruption, just like the rest of the countries in the EAC and the SADC sub-regions. I would like to now invite Mr. James Kinyua, to speak to the leakages through corruption, because corruption is one of the forms of IFFs, illicit financial flows. So could you speak to that and how it's draining resources, and share some of the latest statistics and information around the cancer called corruption? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. First and foremost is to say that corruption and illicit financial flows are not just a governance problem, but they affect revenue, and they threaten our ability to mobilize domestic resources that can be used for development. And so you understand that we have different treaties and conventions, just as Kitengo had mentioned earlier on. And one of them is the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, that I'll mainly refer to as AUCPCC. This has already been ratified, but ratification by itself is very insufficient. So what we are currently facing, the main challenge is its implementation. We lack political will, and enforcement becomes quite an issue, since you understand we are members of various treaties and all that, such as open government partnership and many others that call for transparency and verification, and even matters that can affect, if not fully implemented, can lead us to having sanctions and such stuff. So what I'm trying to say is that as much as we have these, the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, full ratification of it will help in curbing corruption itself. It will help in curbing illicit financial flows, help in curbing money laundering, and also beefing up our anti-money laundering regime, and it will help in curbing the misuse of public and private resources. And all this gets to erode the ability of government to mobilize domestic resources. So DRM by itself is undermined when we have corporate ownership, opacity around corporate ownership. And so allow me to talk about 4 critical areas in which as Transparency International Kenya we did a study on when we were assessing the implementation of AUCPCC. We focused on beneficial ownership, asset recovery, whistleblower protection, and access to information, all across the 4 members of the EAC, that is the East African Community countries. So we need proper implementation, because that was seen as a big challenge, that we have the legal framework, we have good laws, good policies, but on implementation is where we get to draw the line. So having said that, I'll say that corruption and illicit financial flows, for sure, we have seen they continue to drain our resources, and that money can actually be used otherwise to finance development, and all this is tied to the human right perspective of issues, because if hospitals lack medication, it's the citizens who suffer. If schools lack capitation fund, the students will suffer and will have an illiterate population. So I'm also trying to tie all these issues of domestic resource mobilization to the human right perspective of it. So what are the implications in the case whereby we have imminent corruption and a lot of capital flight and through illicit financial flows? You'll understand that the government will get to lose taxes and revenues, all because of corruption and IFFs. And this is done when we have secretive corporate transparency, whereby we have shell companies, we have opaque beneficial ownership mechanisms, and even when we have a lot of hidden assets that are taken out of our borders. And it makes, when it is hard to detect all these, we get to lose a lot of resources, and this actually shrinks the tax base that each and every government within EAC has been talking of, aiming to broaden the tax base to increase a lot of resources. To collect these resources to fund development. And this actually will even undermine tax fairness, because you understand fairness is one of the principles of taxation. You really do not want to have a small percentage of the population paying a majority of taxes and being levied, more so those who are employed, because it's inevitable for them. You get to pay, there's levies in there and a lot of things. The informal sector has not been tapped into, and so we get to lose a lot of resources and revenue in that. Number two, I'll talk about we have reduced capacity for asset recovery. And you know, when our institutions have this inability to trace and to trace and get back these assets, it becomes hard, because this is capital, or rather these are resources that are fleet, that are hidden and would rather be used for development and financing other things. So we need proper mechanisms to help trace, seize, and actually repurpose all these assets that have been lost. And here we need cross-border cooperation among EAC member countries and even other countries in the globe, so that it's easy for us to trace assets and actually get this the value for these assets taken back to the consolidated fund, so that it can help in reducing the budget deficits that we have. And once budget deficit is reduced, even matters of debt, we will get to reduce the debt burden that we have. The other point I'll also talk about is that corruption and illicit financial flows actually weaken public trust and participation of the citizen in the governance process. So in here, allow me to talk about how we have poor whistleblower protection mechanism. You understand, there is a lot of stigma associated with these issues, whereby if someone says or blows the whistle that there is resources that are being misused somewhere, they get stigmatized, some even get killed, some even lose jobs and such. So we need to enhance our whistleblower protection mechanism, because as much as we are going to work with other nations, with other institutions, there are people who operate in these offices or within these sectors that really know how these sectors operate in their fingertips. And so we need to have a platform whereby citizens can easily blow the whistle and get to tell us where these resources are getting lost in. And that way we'll have improved our transparency mechanism, and it actually reduced civic pressure for accountability and in undermining domestic resource mobilization. The other bit is that corruption and illicit financial flows. We have been talking about foreign direct investment. When we have a lot of corruption and illicit financial flows within our nations, you'll get to understand that it creates a very uneven playing field for doing businesses. Because just as someone was saying yesterday, if someone is willing to give a kickback of 1 billion USD and a local, that is a multinational, and a local investor cannot even afford to give a bribe or a kickback of 1 million USD, and you see the disparity, it will affect their capital, it will affect how they are doing business, and they will rather forego those opportunities. So this creates an even playing field for doing businesses. And even you'll get that the politically exposed persons in here get to benefit at the expense of the entire citizen. So it's a small population that benefits at the expense of the larger citizens. And so when all that is said, I can't end this without giving a few recommendations. Number one is that we need to adopt and implement a very robust beneficial ownership transparency. With all these, the beneficial ownership registers need to be made public, so that the citizens, so that the media, the members of the state, and even the civil society organizations can go through verifying the details of these of these companies and businesses and entities that are doing business with government, so that way there is no opacity around this, so that we have proper compliance of even paying taxes, and it will help in tax evasion and all that. Secondly, we need to strengthen our asset recovery frameworks. We need to build the capacity for financial tracking and even institutional coordination, because you understand, if you have the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, you have another office of fighting corruption like the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, you have the Asset Recovery Agency and the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions. Such agencies need to coordinate properly and without feeling that one entity is overstepping on the mandate debt of the other. That way we'll have enhanced our ability for domestic resource mobilization. The other point that I've mentioned about is guaranteeing strong whistleblower protection mechanism, and as well as protecting witnesses that are involved in high corruption cases in courts. We have seen scenarios whereby a witness gives their narration in court, and 2-3 days down the line they die in mysterious circumstances. So if we are really going to enhance domestic resource mobilization, whistleblower protection and witness protection mechanisms needs to be enhanced. And so lastly, based on what even my predecessors have mentioned, is that we need to leverage on cooperation among the EAC member countries. Since we are a regional bloc by itself, we need to harmonize and standardize our laws, our policies, so that we tap and leverage on this cooperation that we have around EAC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade James Kinyua, for confirming to us that there is a hole in the bucket. What goes in is what goes out. And the need to plug the leakages cannot be overemphasized. But also we cannot have this conversation without bringing in the voices of the youth, because Africa is a young continent and the RECs are no exception. So Youth for Tax Justice Network has been building a movement of young people towards advancing tax justice. But also would like to hear from Mr. Alan Muhereza regarding what are the issues they are putting on the table. Are they really on the table or on the menu? And if they're on the menu, what are the concerns? But also, Alan has been actively participating in the UN Tax Convention negotiations. So would like to understand why we are pushing for the shift from the OECD model system to the UN, and what are the issues, what's at stake, what are some of the issues that arose from the third round of negotiations that was held in Nairobi. Thank you, over to you. You have 8 full minutes.
Yes, thank you very much. I will start with the issues for young people. As you might know, that we are currently living in an era where we are blessed with abundance. This is the only time where we've seen that we've created the most wealth at any given time. We are living in an era where we have the best tools when it comes to technology. We are living in an era where we've made advancements in our medicines, in our communications, basically in every aspect of our lives. And yet, at the same time, young people across East Africa and SADC, Africa, but even at the globe, are facing numerous challenges that can be linked to how states raise resources, allocate them, and utilize them for the benefit of young people. So, young people in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania are faced with the same challenges: unemployment, forced immigration, challenges with forced immigration, literacy or skilling, but access to medication and all that. But remember, we said that we are in a time where we are at our best as humanity. We have the money, we have the tools and resources, but nothing is being done. Nothing is being done because there is a challenge when it comes to raising resources to finance these sectors that are critical to youth development. So to answer the question asked, is that the issue is that states can't raise resources, not because the resources are not there. No, the resources are there. We know where they are. The past 2 days we've been discussing around the inability to domestically tax or raise those resources. We've been talking about issues of how we spend almost half of our budget almost in debt reservicing and payment, meaning that other sectors don't get those resources. We've been discussing about, and what James just talked about, the corruption and the leakages and all these other issues, which is to go to the fact that the resources are there, but we are not getting them. And I think for young people, the question has been that if these are all happening, what is our role in making sure that we get these resources, that we allocate them for what we need them to be doing, but also to utilize them so that we get a better livelihood. So I will say two things. One is that as young people, I think the solutions have been given, the reports are there. The challenge then may not be that there is no policies, that there are no laws for which to help us raise these resources. The challenge is that we need then to manufacture the will for actors to then act and enable these reforms. The second thing is that if you look at the stakes, we lose the most if things remain the way they are, but also we win the most when things change or when there's a movement in some of these areas. And this is for one reason. Whether you look at climate, whether you look at who the perpetrators remain the same. They are the same companies, multinationals, high-level net individuals that are exploiting our environment for their benefit. They are the same people that have captured our states so that the policies and laws that are coming out are for their benefit. They are the same actors that control literally every aspect of our communications. If you look, for example, the richest people in the world, for example, all at this point either own a news network or a social media company for the basic reason of just control of the views and things we see. So they are the same perpetrators. But if you also look at the people that are being affected, we are the same young people that are having to deal with student debt. We are the same people that are having to deal with climate adaptation and resilience. We are the same people that have to recover from a pandemic that found us in another pandemic of unemployment. We are the same people that are recovering or dealing with dying on high seas as we try to look for opportunities elsewhere. So for us, it's a stake of life and death, and that's why young people have to be in these conversations on how do states raise resources, how do they allocate them. And we've been doing some work around how do we get young people to give their views on the kind of budgets that we have, on the kinds of tax laws that we have. And of course, currently, we're also trying to see how do we then also influence global tax rules or tax systems so that they can deliver resources that are needed to invest in young people. On the part of why the global tax system must change to deliver for us, for a very long time, like I said, there has not been a shortage for resources, but the tax rules are in a way that monies or resources remain in countries where value or where economic activity has not primarily taken place. And those rules, mainly through double taxation agreements, mainly through bilateral agreements, to the fact that for companies that are doing cross-border trade, a few countries in the global north retained or have most of the taxing rights. Aloysius here said that taxation is the most sustainable way government can raise development finance. And we are saying if it is the most sustainable way, but when it comes to international trade or when it comes to multinationals, you find that it's only a few countries that have or that have given themselves the rights to tax. And that means that when they tax, they get the resources. For us, when we don't tax, we don't get the resources. And then that leads us to borrowing, relying on aid and those other things. So for us to have more resources coming our way, then those tax rules have to change. And I think that is the conversation that we've been having, saying that there should be a fair allocation of taxing rights, especially for companies or that are doing cross-border trade, that are deriving value, but the countries or the jurisdictions where that value is being derived or where that economic activity is undertaken or is being done, don't get some of these benefits or some of this income. So the idea is that every country should have a say in how resources or profits that are made in its jurisdiction get shared within the different countries. And of course, the challenge with the OECD system had been that if you looked at the rules, and actually the whole challenge is against the transfer pricing sort of rules in international taxation. We are saying that the agreements that were there initially gave a lot of leeway, gave a lot of power, gave a lot of taxing rights to countries mainly in the global north. They've enabled tax havens where instead of avoiding double taxation, there has come a situation where there is double non-taxation. You don't tax a company in Uganda, you also don't tax it in Netherlands. And then both Netherlands and Uganda don't have resources. But because Netherlands has maybe a better sort of agreement, they will have at least some bit of taxing rights. So that is where all this work around reforming the global taxation rules, and those conversations, those negotiations are happening. They started this year. The third session just concluded in Nairobi, and of course a few issues came about on what constitutes fair sharing fair taxing rights when it comes to within the UN framework. Is because in the UN system, one country has one vote. So the idea is that countries are able to negotiate a good deal and negotiate taxing rights for themselves. So in conclusion, I think what then is going to happen, what is going to be done is three things. One, like I said, we are going to have an input within this system, that every country, if there has been value, if there has been economic activity, if there has been even just market share of some of these companies and how they make their resources or they make their profits, all those countries have to tax, so that in the end we have the money that we need to invest in young people. Secondly is that we are going to keep on giving alternatives. As CSOs, there's been alternatives on, even suggestions on how a UN tax convention should look like, which articles should be in there, and certain things same thing that we've been doing at a national level, where we've given alternative tax proposals, budgets, and all these other things to inform and ensure that the laws that we have can be able to deliver the resources that we need to invest in young people. And then lastly, like I said, we are here to also manufacture the political will to inform these sort of reforms. And I know in Uganda and some of the East African countries, we've been having elections, and we've been engaging our negotiators, we've been engaging our ministries of finance, revenue authorities, and all this. And the idea is that we should still and keep doing the same thing. It is better that we may get concessions during elections, but the idea is that our political class, which most of the times is also our economic class in Africa, needs to come together and provide the reforms that we need, so that tax revenue, especially through taxation, can deliver the resources that we need. And for us, then, what we are going to do is we are going to link this conversation with all the movements that have been happening, whether it's climate, whether it's peace, whether it's health, whether it's education, name it. The idea is that for all those things to happen, young people need to be in conversations on how resources are mobilized, how they are allocated, and how they are utilized for their benefits. So our commitment is that we are going to not ask and call for this political will. We are going to be in spaces and make sure that our leaders know this is the agenda that we need to be having at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alan Muhereza, for making the case for young people, but also the need to center their voices in the different policy processes, and the need to push for reforms to ensure that fiscal policies deliver for the young people, but also underscoring the issue of taxing rights and really why we need to be on the table, not on the menu. Thank you so much. So I would like now to invite Comrade Kennedy. He sits somewhere strategic, and the work that Uganda Parliamentary Network on illicit financial flows and tax justice does is quite a lot, including engaging members of parliament. And members of parliament have an oversight role. So what's not happening with the oversight role of members of parliament? And what are some of the recent issues that you are championing under both the Uganda Parliamentary Network on Illicit Financial Flows and Tax Justice and UPTNIFT, the regional all-continental platform? Thank you. You have 8 full minutes. and then it will be time for all of us to ask any questions or supplement. But for now, it's Kennedy's moment to shine. Thank you.
Thank you, Herbert and colleagues. As I introduced, my name is Oluma Kennedy. I coordinate the Uganda Parliamentary Network on Illicit Financial Flows and Tax Justice in the Uganda Parliament, which is a broader umbrella body from the African Parliamentary Network on Illicit Financial Flows. Just to be precise to say, we are at a time that the agitation for stronger institutions of accountability, not just in Uganda, but in a region, is necessary at a time. But also we are at a time that it is very important to recognize that a fair, effective tax regime within countries or blocks is very important, that it fits within the global architecture of financial management. And therefore, it is within the countries and the regions to ensure that, one, they have not just look at tax as a tax itself, but domestic resource mobilizations as a means to deliver services to the people within the region. So therefore, if we consider these avenues as important for service delivery, that we are going to be deliberate as a country or as a regional blocks to concentrate, to build the necessary energies, one, to make sure that we have effective resource mobilization within the countries, but also we alienate or eliminate avenues or linkages that affect our tax or resource mobilizations. And then that takes us to the issues of, like my colleague has said, the issues of eliminating or trying to curb issues of illicit financial flows. The statistics current data indicates that Africa in general loses over 50 billion US dollars in form of IFFs, which we call the illicit financial flows. And these are the monies that can be able to contribute in terms of service deliveries in different countries. Uganda alone loses over 500 million US dollars to IFFs. But if we have institutional frameworks that are accountable and strong, I sit within the parliament, and I can speak for the parliament, that if we have a stronger parliament as an oversight responsibility, as a legislative responsibility, you are going to have a stronger mechanism of accountability and transparency. And therefore, if there are strategies to have effective domestic resource mobilization, you are going to achieve and be able to have an effective service deliveries. And this is a call that only does not happen in Uganda. This is a call that should be able to happen across the East African region, across the Africa as a continent. And it is a concern because the global or the financial architecture is now changing. Aid is no longer the business as usual. We have seen this. And therefore, countries need to be aware that as the financial architecture is changing, the regional or the national strategies must be gotten right. And that is where, for us, we say, we use parliament as a mechanism of advocacy, but also improve on the legislation, on financial management, but also to be able to curb issues of corruption, curb issues of IFFs in the region and as a country in Uganda. And I can tell you that the members that belong to our networks, they have done quite a number of things to be able to link the achievements, to be able to link what they can be able to do to improve legislation within the Parliament of Uganda, but also do comparisons and linkage with the other regional efforts that are meant to curb IFFs, but also improve in reducing the level of corruption in the region. The other thing I wanted to say is that there is, as we strive to have a strong institutions of government that can be able to deliver, we also have overwhelming challenges that our institutions face. And this does not happen in just only in Uganda. We have institutions that, for us where we sit, I call it the illicit behavioral flows of the political class
that would want to dominate over the other political class. For example, the parliament has specific roles that it performs in the management of the government. If the parliament is meant to perform a legislative or an oversight in form of delivery and accountability, why should another institution of the government interfere with the work of the parliament? That is what we call, it's an illicit behavior to overstep. Also the vis-a-vis, why would the parliament overstep on the responsibility and the duties of another institution of the government? So these are the challenges that we continue to face that affects not just our domestic resource mobilization, but they also affect the service deliveries within our countries. My prayer and my wish is that both the institutions that we have, like Parliament, the executive, and the other MDAs within the government should be able to have a linkages so that we have a collaborative approaches to be able to help our countries navigate through the challenges of the financial management, now that we are coming face to face with the reality that it's no longer the business as usual. So the responsibility lies in all of us. That one, we as the citizens, much as we trust our governments, but we must also remain committed to ask and demand for accountability from our institutions of the government, be it executive, be it parliament, or be it any other MDAs. But also the institutions of the government, we must be able to task them to deliver on their responsibilities without missing a word. We have had situations, I think yesterday we've heard from members of parliament here who attest to the fact that at the process of budgeting, where they deem it fit, the other government agencies or the other arms of the government, probably the executive, comes and wants to rubber stamp and consume the responsibility of the parliament and call the parliament that you cannot make any changes, you cannot be able to legislate on this. This is wrong. We should be able to strengthen our members of parliament, give them the ideal data, information, so that they can be able to stamp and stand on their institutional responsibility against the influence and the efforts from the executive to manipulate the process of management. As long as we do not have respect for our institutions, we are going to have these challenges of mismanagement. We're going to have challenges of effective mobilization of domestic revenues. And like my colleague said, our challenges sometimes are not even that we do not have the resources. We have the resources, but it is how do we, first of all, get the resources? And then after getting the resources, how do we use the resources? If you get the resources and then you use the resources, you're going to continue complaining that we do not have the resources. Where even when the resources are limited, you must be able to put them to the right use. And I think that is a responsibility for all of us to task the government, because we have a part to play as citizens, but also as a civil society. We have a responsibility to remind every agency, every department, every institution that you have to deliver ABC, including the media. We must not give up on the responsibility to have an effective, first of all, an effective mobilization of the domestic resources, effective uses of these resources, so that we can be able to see the dividends from our resources. As I conclude, the citizens have a responsibility to pay taxes, and the government has all the responsibility to devise all the means to task the citizens to pay taxes. But for the fairness of the taxes, every tax must be progressive in nature. I, as a citizen, I will be motivated to contribute my fair share of the taxes with all the happiness, with the motivation, by service that I get from the government. In a situation that I do not get fair service, I feel the services are not fair to me, I think that becomes a demotivating factor for us, even for the government, to tell me that I am eligible to pay tax A and B. So I think that is one of the greatest challenges that we have, not just in East Africa, not just in Uganda, and I think that is a bigger challenge for Africa. We do not resonate the service delivery to the proportionation of the tax that our citizens are paying. I have to drive from Kampala to Arua. instead of driving for about 8 hours, I am going to spend about 12 hours just because the roads are bad. But I pay taxes every day, either directly or indirectly. So I question myself, what is the dividend that I get in terms of road service if I am going to spend extra 4 hours to drive from Kampala to Arua, and yet I'm supposed to drive for 8 hours? The time that I'm going to spend, the more money I'm going to spend on fuel, and these are things that we must be able to cost. In Kampala alone, the time that we spent in a jam, there was a statistic that indicated that we lose over 500 billion per year in terms of resources just by the congestions caused by poor roads, narrow roads in Kampala within the periphery. If we are to have a strategic measures to alienate the congestion, the traffic jams, we would waste little time, would save a lot of resources, we would not even need to go and borrow money to deliver certain services. So that means that there is a lot of potential inwardly, there's a lot of potential for us to have effective domestic resource mobilization. But beyond just having the effective mobilization of the resources, we also need to have the effective and strategic uses of the resources that we have mobilized. And I think that is the direction that we need to have as a matter of a strategy. Beyond just mobilizing domestic resources, we must also carry the discussion of is strategic and effective usage of the resources that must have a meaningful effect on the citizens. So for me, I would first of all, it's unfortunate that we don't have men, but I know that whether one or two, the members of parliament here, the institutional frameworks, parliament as a representation of the people should have a stronger mandate and a stronger responsibility to do its work. The parliament as an oversight institution should be able to check other MDAs whether we have given you this kind of money, whether you have used it properly. If you have not used it properly, what has it done? And the sense of accountability should be taken very seriously. And then, in terms, as I conclude, in terms of closing other leakages of revenue collection, I think we have unwarranted expenditures that happens in our ministries, that happens in our, for example, I want to give in Uganda, let me use an example as an example. Over 80% of the government ministries in Uganda are living in rental houses, and they pay billions of money in rental houses. Parliament, if you see the parliament building, parliament rents and pays a lot of money to Rupereria in the Kingdom House, and I can tell you the number of offices within the parliament having where even the parliament, members of parliament still would occupy. And then you ask yourself, why is it even necessary for the government to strategically think year in and out that we should proudly just be renting and have no mechanism of saying we can be able to accommodate, have structures that can accommodate 1 or 2, 3 government agencies or ministries? These are some of the unnecessary expenditures just because you have people within the government that think it is strategic enough for them to be siphoning money from the taxpayers' collections. So these are things that I think we need to be able to look deep into to cut misuse of domestically collected revenues. Our mechanism of asset declaration. Me and you know for a fact that there are people who get a job today within the government agencies. They get a job today. Within 2 months, they have put up a flat within Kololo, where they have put a flat within. And you ask yourself, this gentleman who has just gotten a job the other month, where did he get all this money? And there are no mechanism of tracking this man's asset vis-a-vis his earnings. And they happen here. The guy has worked for just a year. The 3 children he has have all cars. The wife has 4 cars. He himself, he has about 3 cars, and they all parked in his compound or his up-country home. And we do not have mechanism to question. And we're talking about closing up mechanism of collecting taxes. I think these are realities that we live with. So for me, as an advocate of institutional frameworks, I would want us to strengthen our institutions that can be able to deliver and ensure that there's a sense of accountability, there's a sense of fairness, and there's a sense of effectiveness. I think that's all that I can be able to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Kennedy, for that insightful sharing. Just to emphasize one issue that he raised among the so many really important issues he raised, the issue of effective domestic resource mobilization to deliver services to the people. Because the people need services, but they're not reaching them. So we need effective domestic resource mobilization. So to guide the next brief session is that I'm now opening the discussion. We'll have five distinguished comrades either briefly compliment or ask a question, but we need more of questions because the sharing has been extensive, so that the same questions are addressed to the panelists, but also to the panelists as we get the questions, prepare to give your parting shots, and the parting shots will be each in 1 minute. If the policymakers stumble on this video one day, what do you want them to take away? So I'll get back to you. The discussion is now open, and let's have the questions.
Yes, my name is Ali Twaha from New Vision. I didn't want to speak, but there's something that Alozi has said, but also Alan tend to reference it, saying that resources are available. And I thought we kind of get lost in that statement. When you say resources are available, I look at it in two ways. Either maybe you're talking about us having a lot of natural resources, that we can exploit, because there's no country that I know that has taxed its people into growth or funded the entire budget by taxing its people. Look at the Middle East, the Russia, all these have grown by exploiting their natural resources. Others have developed literally by stealing from other countries. You talked of the IFFs. They are stealing resources from other countries. That's why they're developing. Now, on the flip side, when you say resources are available, I tend to think people have money, you see? But the available statistics do not show that we really have the money. Businesses are struggling now because of the taxation that is happening currently. They think it's too much. When you go to the banks, we have about 23 million accounts, but 93% have less than 1 million shillings on them. When the Kenyans convert to their money, they tend to laugh, but that's about 36,000 Kenya shillings. And the 2% have about 10 million on their bank accounts. For the Kenyans, that's about 360K. So money is really not there. So when you say resources are available, I want you to drive that point home, really. What do you mean? The youth don't have the jobs to then feed into the taxation that we want. Just make that point land properly. Thank you.
Thank you. I think mine will go to Kennedy. Sitting here and I've been listening to what's going on, and I honestly, my heart is bleeding heavily, because we know where the problems are, we know the challenges, we know what we need to fix. But why aren't we actually doing something about it? If we continue giving action points and we're not doing anything about it, let's just stop the dialogue.
Thank you so much. I don't have a direct person to ask this question, but I want to bring it back from the conversation yesterday that Akina Mama wa Africa talked about, and maybe it may not be a question for Aaron, but it may be a question for all of us that are talking about issues of resource mobilization and allocation of resources. And I wanted to bring up back this the concern of Uganda, of the Public Finance Management Act 2015, Section 9, where Uganda has been one of the countries that we have been really trying to learn from because of the Certificate of Gender and Equity budgeting in terms of compliance. But again, looking at the journey where we started and losing it completely. Since yesterday, we never mentioned about it. And we are here talking about issues of accountability and transparency. And considering of the reference of what Akna Mama yesterday mentioned, I just missed her name, on the issue of unpaid care work and the number of women that are in the market that are supposed to be, that pay taxes. And bringing back to the country where we don't have the money. There is no money. When you go to the market, there is no money. And and taking it back to the Transparency International in terms of the gap, of the inequality gap, where we have seen the number of, maybe Aaron, this would be also another question for you, the number of youth, the number of women and boys that has, not boys, and men that has lost jobs when the aid cut appeared in the space. And so many minds coming out of our conversation. Do you want to continue seeing those who come to the job and buy them at 10 million? Do you want to continue 10 million Uganda shillings? Do you want to continue having the conversation, the dialogues around how funds are coming in the country and how they have been allocated, but then without going deeper to understand who cares and who suffers more?
My name is Caroline Jenga from Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. I'm a financial journalist. I would want to know, how can EAC countries leverage on the regional capital markets, which are dominated in local currencies, to reduce over-reliance on expensive external debt and also foreign currency exposure? My second question, this goes to, I don't want to butcher your name, but Siatini, Uganda. You mentioned that many multinational companies operating in Africa are taxed in the country where they are registered and not where the income is earned. In Kenya, we recently, a British firm discovered gold worth $5 billion. And also, transparency can also answer as well. In Western Kenya, a place called Western Kenya. And they're saying it's suitable for commercial mining. I would like to know, how far are we in pushing for the source-based taxation? I know the UN tax convention, they're talking about some of these issues, but how far are we in pushing for this? Because already we have gold discovered and we do not want this gold, or rather taxes, being shipped out of our own country.
Thank you. Let's have Comrade Prime, then Talibita, then we'll finally end here at the front with
thank you so much. Thank you so much. My name is Prime Mukama. I'm from Burundi, working with a civil society organization. So my question or concern, we have been saying that we are missing resources. We are missing money. You say that we have no money. But I can, on my viewpoint, I can see that there is a contradiction. Whereas we know that our countries are very rich in minerals, and you say we don't have money, we go to contact loans, so I can't understand. So can you please clarify how we are poor and we don't have money, whereas we have minerals everywhere in our countries? That was my concern.
Thank you. Comrade Talibita, then we finally end here.
Thank you very much. I am interested in a success story in Africa, or in a sector, or an age group that has elected to use domestic revenue mobilization and indeed transformed. And public goods, for instance, whether it is transport, health, or education, or security, for that matter. I know we are buying food, we are buying beverages, we are buying transport, including even the clothing. We have heard of labels, we have heard of music. I am interested in you at least having us write home about Africa, of a success story. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Lawrence Mushabe. I work for Next Media, particularly NBS. Mine will go specifically to Comrade Kennedy and maybe Alan. Many of the East Africans struggling with heavy personal taxes, while billions are getting lost, in every year through tax incentives, and also going to those corporations, also illicit financial flows. What are some of those? I just want you to highlight. What are some of those strategic measures that you're putting in place, maybe to have some of these loopholes done, or maybe these tax burdens put to the end? Thank you.
Thank you. Lastly.
My name is Rona Nahabwe. I work with NTV Uganda. I wanted Aloysius to expound more on what he meant by taxing multinationals at source. How have they been taxed before? What exactly do you mean?
Thank you so much. So to guide the final parting shots, let's share key messages in case a policymaker, a citizen, any actor within the civil society space, or anyone who has power to do something about what the situation at hand is, stumbles on a video. What message do you want them to take? But also in response to the questions, make it short. Issues around the resource wealth and poverty paradox has been emphasized. Let's speak to it. But maximum, let each of us take 2 minutes to summarize. Let's pitch. So the test is on. Let's start with Comrade Kennedy, but then I request that Comrade Aloysius will summarize and close the entire discussion. So we will skip him when we get to him.
There's a lady that asked me that your heart is bleeding, that we know where the problem is. Probably you're suggesting that why don't we stop these dialogues? I am an optimist. The same way your heart is bleeding is the same way that Uganda is bleeding. It is the same way Africa is bleeding, and it's the same way my heart is bleeding. But being an optimist, I do not want us to lose hope. I want us to do our civic responsibility that we are meant to do. Basic. One of the things I do within my own rights as a citizen, because I pay taxes, either directly or indirectly, if I cannot influence the greater government entities, I will start by influencing from my LC1 level. If I go to my home, in my own village, I have a responsibility to tell people this is right, this is wrong. But also in the civic spaces that we have like now, we have to do what we must do. Shared ideas, shared information, and shared responsibilities. Like I said earlier, we are at a time that the demand for strong institutions for effective service delivery is growing. Just recently, most of us we witnessed here in Kenya, we may not have successfully had a citizen voice that pushes people to listen. Just recently, we saw what happened in Kenya. They kept informing the government that we do not want this finance bill. The government, because thinks that it has an authority, they never wanted to listen. What the citizens did, they went to the streets and overwhelmed the voices of authority. Time will come, and I can tell you, and I'm a very optimistic, time will come because of shared information, because of shared ideas, we the citizens will become the voice of a reason. Whether you're a minister, whether you're a member of parliament that whether you are the president, you will have no choice than to listen to the voices of the people. And I can tell you that time is coming. It does not matter the level of impunity that you see, that the government ministries, the government leaders, they exercise. When you walk on the road here, for you are stuck in a jam, the minister comes with a siren, the law does not even allow him to do it, but they do it. But I can tell you, one day, these ministers that move with the sirens thinking that they're exercising the impunity on the roads, they will be stopped by you, the ordinary citizens, and they will have to stop. So that means you do not have to give up of doing your due diligence and your responsibility as a citizens. And that should be the message. Keep advocating what we can do, like what we are doing here. Inform the people that what you're doing is wrong. If you're misusing our government money, our taxpayers' money, it is my responsibility to tell you that it is wrong. You are misusing our taxpayers' money. And I'm not going to get tired of that. Either I'm going to use my social media spaces, I'm going to use my network like this. I will have to speak the truth to the power and authority for what is wrong. The other person said, the question of whether we have the money. First of all, resources is not just about money. Resources can be human resource, it can be financial resources. Resources is abroad. By the way, if you check the data that Uganda has today, the highest export for Uganda is gold, if I'm not mistaken. But me, I can tell you, me and you know, where is Uganda mining that gold? Where do we have the gold fields? It is not, I can tell you, you will not find it anywhere. But Uganda's highest export is what? Is gold, as of now.
Please tell us where it comes from.
So, I am not here to record it, but for the purposes, we all know that someone is doing a black business somewhere to bring that gold in Uganda. I come from West Nile. One of the most lucrative businesses in West Nile is what we call smuggling. And one of the most smuggled thing is the gold. You get it? This gold smuggles its way here and comes to Uganda. Someone packages it and then exports it. And it earns Uganda. And whether that money comes to Uganda, whatever, that is another debate. So the question of whether we have the money or not, I am a believer that our problem is not the resources. Our problem is mismanagement of the resources. When we get our priorities right, I can tell you, these questions of why do we borrow money to construct even just 10 kilometers of road? Why? These are things that we just need a right-thinking government with the right-thinking people to do the right things for the people. The problem that now we have, people in the government think they are in heaven. For us, the citizens, they think, so this one, good enough we have a honorable member of parliament here. They are here. Some of the discussions that you see in the parliament, you may think these people, they have just germinated from heaven. I will be very honest with you. They begin to think above every other thing, and yet you live with the realities. Do you need a miracle to come and tell you that there are Ugandans that even don't afford a meal a day? So these are things that, as I said, my position is that our problem is not, if you talk about money, our problem is not even money. Our problem is how do we collect that money effectively and how do we use it effectively? For me, that is the biggest challenge. Do we need all the presidential advisors that we have that are siphoning a lot of money? We don't need those presidential advisors. Even if the president has like 5 advisors, those are enough. Who in most times we all know that they don't even advise the president. The president ends up advising them. But they are getting over 5 million, they get offices, they drive government cars. Do we need those expenses? We don't. My time is up. The last question I think I will respond to is the gentleman asked, the money that we lose in form of corruption, in form of IFFs. That's why I emphasize the issue of institutions that must be able to work. The other time, boldly, the former IGG, Honorable Betty Kamia, she came on a media and even assured all of us, the ordinary Ugandans, that when you fall sick, you're on your own. For them who are government officials, they will not suffer because when they fall sick, the president will get them a plane, rush to Entebbe, fly them. So that tells you that our priorities on utilizing the resources and services are misplaced. We lose money in form of corruption because even when you know that this institution is supposed to check the monies that we give to ministries, the money that we give to institutions of the government must be used in accordance with the budget framework that you submitted. And then what happens? The other day someone was saying the budget that we allocate in the ministries, people use them because they are too powerful. They use them to sponsor their boyfriends and girlfriends because it is available to them. And yet there is a mother dying in Mulago because they cannot even afford anesthesia. There is someone dying somewhere because of ABCD. These are all avenues that we can be able to close. One, by having effective institutions that can be able to have a sense of accountability. But also, we must have our priorities right. For me, those are the things that I've said a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Comrade Kennedy. And I request to my good friends, the Fourth Estate, the discussion is kept within context because if there is just an excerpt that is obtained from the broader discussion, then it can go out of context. Because really this press conference is aimed at ensuring that we share the key messages. And what Comrade Kennedy shared is within the context of DRM, the leakages and everything. I'm sorry to really have this special request, but my job might be at stake. So, Comrade Lillian, over to you.
Thank you. The best part is that I didn't have any questions directed to me, but I'll try and comment to just 2 questions that were asked. And also just to comment what the comrade has already spoken about. I think you said the time is coming. In my view is that the time is here. The time is actually here. I don't think it's coming. I think the terminology we can use is that it has begun. And how far we are going to go, I don't know. But I believe even the next generation will live up to remember this time, and probably they'll do better. But we have already seen that citizens are already demanding for accountability. They're already demanding the policymakers to actually work towards what they're entitled to. So yeah, just to say that I see the time is here, and maybe it's just a matter of different time zones, but I believe we are all going to catch up at some point. Now, in my comments, one thing I also wanted to mention is the question of why do we have resources and are still poor. I think this all goes back to the question of as much as what he has also raised, but also the political will. Do we have that political will? And again, following what Herbert has requested, I have seen a country where the minister has just got into office, and the first thing he has called a press conference to ask investors to invest in the specific health department. And he was very clear, specifically asking investors, and the investors were also present in the room and alluding and saying that let's give investors opportunity. No one should actually question the investors who come. But it gives you the bigger question, where does that leave the local citizens? Are we actually capacitating our own people to invest? Are we capacitating our own people to actually carry on this project? It's a health conversation. We have doctors, don't we? We teach doctors, but unfortunately, most of the doctors are going across the borders to go and work elsewhere. We have institutions that are there. We have medicine factories, but what are our medicine factories doing? If most of our health budgets actually imports medicines from outside the country. So then again, I think this all goes back to, do we have the will? Are our policymakers having the will to actually use the local domestic resources that we have as a country to serve our own needs? Or we are more of just looking outside and calling on for investors? Because the language right now you hear with most of our policy makers is invite investors. We have to provide an environment for investors. And that is where we go back to the same conversation. Debt, tax havens, that also our local investors will never get that. If as a local investor, as a person, if I wanted to go and invest into medicine, what are my conditions? You'll see all of those revenue, it's the revenue authorities, but also all those many institutions coming for me. But if an international investor walks into the country and wants to do that, it's tax havens, it is debts. It's the same thing that we have had from the previous conversation. So I think this brings up the bigger question. That is why I said, I think there's a point we need to go back to the drawing board to see what exactly are we missing? Where are we and what are we missing vis-a-vis what we can do? The question is asked the success stories. Again, I'll give the same example. I've seen a country, and I'm not saying that it was perfect, but we have also seen instances where a government can decide to cut on some government expenses and actually allocate the funding to something else. The same question here is the issue he raised, where you have government officials renting different facilities. What if we already built those facilities and whoever comes in just finds them? It's just a matter of changing the houses. Would have saved that funding to actually pay the rent every year. But we're not seeing that as a practice. So where do we call that? Is that ignorance, or is that political will? Is that not being aware? But I think we have opportunities we can actually do that and save most of those save most of that revenue that is being collected. Currently, I'm even seeing in some of the East African countries, we have a situation where actually the ministers have increased. The deputy ministers. We used to have one deputy minister in some countries. Now we are seeing 3 deputy ministers in one ministry. And so tell me, how are we going with that? The same conversation you're saying, you have an advisor, so many advisors being paid, but at the end of the day, they're the ones being advised. And most of the times, even in some countries, you'll hear, I'm receiving directives from above. So that means you're not advised, you're not actually doing much, but basically just there filling the spot. So if we actually manage to eradicate some of these expenses, I'm sure we'll not be sitting here discussing about how we can use our own domestic resources, but rather we'll be utilizing them. My call and my final comment is, in the EAC, I call upon for political will. What we are staggering around right now, what we are suffering with is the political will. I can tell you for sure, we have the instruments, we have the institutions, we have all the frameworks being put in place that can work towards ensuring a successful integration. But what we just don't have is the political will. We have had so many policies being passed in the East African community. We have had so many decisions being made by the Ministerial Council, but how many are being implemented within our partner states? It doesn't take much for you to understand how granted you are until you move across the region. You go to some EAC partner states coming into the block, and you realize we have partner states that don't even have a corruption board. We have partner states that don't even have constitutional courts. We have partner states that don't even have ministries that actually address most of the issues in the country. But then again, you come to some partner states that you see have all of these institutions in place. And what have we done so far? We are now celebrating 25 years, I think almost 30 years of the East African community. Where are we? What have we achieved? What have we done? Do we need to reform what is there? Do we need to enact more laws? And how many are we going to enact to ensure that they're being implemented? I think I call upon EAC heads of states, I call upon EAC governments, I call upon EAC citizens to just actually move back and look at what we have done so far. What have we drawn? What are the institutions that we have? And how best are they working to serve the needs of the citizens? Do we need to keep on forming new legislations to address some of these needs? So for me, I believe that political will is one thing that we can head to achieve most of these challenges that we are having. And if we all took note of what is already there and see what we can do better, I believe we'll be in a better conversation and rather not discussing this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I cannot overemphasize that. Over to you, Comrade Alan.
Thank you. I think the question was that there are no resources, and yet for us we are saying that there are resources. And I think that's the whole idea of tax justice. Tax justice is basically to say everyone should pay their fair share of tax, however little it might be or however much it might be. And the idea is that if everyone pays a little, no one then has to pay a lot. And I'll give an example, Ali, that when we say the money is there, it's not just being collected or it's just not being wasted. We basically, I'll give an example. When the Mbeki report came out, the high-level panel report on illicit financial flows from Africa, it noted that for every dollar that Africa gets, it loses 3. If you're losing, it means it was already there, you're just losing it. For every dollar you get in investment, in a loan, in whatever, you're losing 3. And I'll give 3 examples. One has been talked about. The current market price of value for a kilogram of gold is over 480 million. Uganda, we export 480 million Uganda shillings. We export over $2 billion worth of gold every year. But I think it was Dr. Musa who said that even the $200 we had hoped to tax on almost 120,000 worth of the kgs, we don't even collect that. So you could ask yourself how much, if we did that, we would be getting as a country. If you look at just our tax expenditures, and I'll give an example for Uganda, money that government either deems to be paid, so it doesn't collect, or it pays on behalf of others, or you've even seen some of these requests to parliament to forgive and what all those. It is 3.6 trillion Uganda shillings, and that is for only this year. So, and that is money that is there. We are just not collecting it. We are just not, or we are just deeming it to have been collected. So, for accounting purposes, you don't. You even just and I'll give, this is the last maybe example I'll give to just illustrate that if we, and I'll give maybe to answer Lawrence's question, the measures that maybe we'll have to take. I'll usually give an example of the Talo case. You remember the famous handshake case that we had, that in just one transaction, government assessed and tax due to it was over 600 million Uganda shillings. And maybe what I would ask is, how many ordinary Ugandans would you have to tax in but Chikuvu people have money. In Machindie, where you would collect over 600 million US dollars from those people. There would be so many, but here you are just getting it from one company in one transaction. So the question then would be, why aren't these people that are supposed to pay not paying? And if they paid, then maybe you would not have to put excise duty on this, you would not have to put VAT on that, So, and then that brings me to the measures that we can then do to see that some of these things are addressed. One, and that's what we've been calling for access to some of this information, the country by country reporting, and having this information out. And I'll give an example. There are companies here in Uganda that have been declaring losses to revenue authorities, but when they go back to their home countries where they're registered, they declare profits and dividends to their shareholders. So it cannot be that in Uganda, where you're having operations, you made a loss, but when it comes to your shareholders in Ireland, in Netherlands, you're telling them, actually, we have a global profit, and then this is a dividend we're paying out. So it means that then there should be some sort of sharing of information between Ireland and Uganda for the purposes of being able to exactly know, did this company really make a loss? Did this company, if it made a loss in Uganda, is it that it's paying a dividend to its shareholders in Ireland? It means that here it cooked, it's booked, it has an artificial loss, but then the benefit then goes out, and Uganda can't tax a loss, so you lose that. So there is the need for country by country reporting, countries sharing this information, having public registers, so that we know who owns these companies and where are they paying their taxes. Then the second, of course, goes to the issue of collaboration that we've been talking about, especially when we countries, again, maybe before I leave on access to information, the argument of a company, I think it was around 2018, I'll not say which company it is, there was a proposal that company had been declaring losses for over 9 years. Then there came a proposal that we should tax just about 1% of the sales value or of the gross profit. So we're saying you're making losses, yes, but since you're also using our roads, our electricity, these things, you just pay 1% of your gross. And look it up, the following year, that company declared a profit. because it was cheaper to pay 30% on the profit than pay 1% on its gross on gross profit. So the resources, those monies are available. We just need to tax them. Of course, on collaboration, that's why we're here calling for harmonized tax policies, calling for international tax cooperation when it comes to tax. The idea is that if you're working in isolation, money goes through. You have situations where you have double non-taxation. A company is not taxed in Uganda, a company is not taxed in Netherlands, so you lose out. And yet if you had agreed and said, okay, let's share this tax revenue, Uganda gets some little money and then also another country. I keep on using Netherlands because we have a double taxation agreement with Netherlands that the Ugandan government has been trying to renegotiate. But it also has it also exemplifies some of the issues that we've been having when it comes to taxation of multinational companies and taxation of high net worth individuals. And maybe lastly, in terms of the measures, we should also have some bit of improved tax administration. Of course, I know our revenue authorities are doing their best given the circumstances, but the idea would be, again, to say that there are quite a number of people that are not traceable, or that are not, I will not say not in the money economy, but they cannot be found when it comes to in matters of getting their fair share of tax. And I'll give an example that there are sectors in this country, and I'll just give agriculture, where we know for a fact that certain farmers are really rich. They are really rich, but if they told some of these farmers to say, okay, you contribute the little you can contribute, the same way the teacher, the doctor, the lawyer, or even anyone else is doing, then you have a problem. But the idea is that if we have improved tax administration, we can get some of these people within the tax bracket. And this all is to say that if everyone paid a little, no one has to pay a lot. So I still believe the resources are here. We just have to reach out for them and get them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Alan, for that. Maybe just to add 1 cent on that conversation is the fact that our countries are capital importing countries. We attract profit-seeking finance, and so a lot of value is lost, especially through IFFs. And we've been talking about the issue that the issue of IFFs is deeper in extractive sector. So that explains more around that. So I will skip Comrade Aloysius, then get to James Kinyua to share final thoughts and reflections, but also make it regional, make it targeted. This is your final sharing. And this press briefing really is covering the EAC and the SADC sub-regions. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I'll start with the first question, that was, why are we not implementing strong anti-corruption and IFF laws, yet we have good legal frameworks? I'll start by saying that for sure, yes, we have solid legal framework within the EAC, but the implementation gaps are still there to date because, number one, our institutions are not really that strong. The government cannot even guarantee the independence of those independent institutions that are even supposed to monitor and even enhance transparency and accountability within the region. As well, when we look even into our annual budget, some of these institutions are not really funded fully as they need to be funded. Like in the case of Kenya, we see a lot of renovation of office budgets and some other funny budget lines. Yet we see law enforcement agencies keep crying day in, day out that they report to the office just to make sure the day ends and they report that they have attended in their duties. But it's not possible because of the limited resources that we have. I've talked about political interference. You'll get to find that the political class, one way or another, always wants to have a way in their daily affairs and such. So that actually gets to limit the way we get to implement our laws and the legal, the entire legal framework that we have, and it gets to ensure that we have low accountability and transparency. So we need to strengthen those institutions. We need to ensure independence of these offices. We need to also empower our citizens, empower the media, and even, right now there's a Civicus report that has been out for the entire East African community. And we are seeing what a continuing and worrying trend whereby the civic space has been suppressed. So we need to ensure that the civic space is not suppressed, so that we always get to speak truth to power, and we can see real action when in areas that we are seeing a lack of implementation. Secondly, there was the question of why is there still inequality within the EAC. As we speak, I was looking at my phone, I saw a message of someone, I even don't know who it is, who has just asked me. I helped them I helped them get a job. They are even willing to pay a bribe to get that job. So you can see the depths of where we have landed ourselves, we have gotten ourselves into. So corruption here actually diverts resources that are meant for public use. I talked about linking DRM with human right perspective of issues, and that way it's when the point will hit home, and you'll get to see there's a lot of inequalities, just as the question has been asked. So you'll get to find that when such a person who is even willing to pay for bribes, or even others who have paid for bribes to get jobs, it actually affects the factor that is called meritocracy. You don't have the right person for the right job in that office. And then it will lead to the very first question on why are we not implementing our laws? Because we have people in office who do not know how to carry out their mandate on a daily basis. So in short, what I'm trying to say is that this will get to reduce inefficiency when we lack meritocracy, or when we don't have the right man for the right job in office. And DRM cannot succeed or even prosper when we don't have fair systems, when there is no transparency in public spending, and when we don't have equal access to opportunities. So of the opacity that is around our governance system, I get to ask, why is there this opacity? What are we really hiding from our people? We need to ensure that registry like the BO registry is made public for the entire citizens to scrutinize who owns what, where is it located, and such. Who is the natural person who benefits? We need full implementation of our various Access to Information Act, so that we don't have a repressed civic space. We cannot operate in a vacuum. When the citizens don't know where to ask questions, to whom to ask questions, or to whom to address the questions, every day it will be PR, public relations, every now and then. And that's that. So we need transparency and not opacity. The third one was on how EAC countries can use local capital so that we reduce over-reliance on debt. On this one, I really don't have much points, because I understand the different national treasuries in our various jurisdictions get to call for, they are called T-bills or something like that, whereby people get to buy bonds and using the local currency so that the government can raise revenue. So that needs also to be enhanced. And citizens nowadays don't want to do business with government, because there's a lot of challenges. Sometimes you'll do business with government, you're not paid, or there's delayed payment. Pending bills are piling up in our various offices in the various jurisdictions. So that is one of the areas that we need to look into. As well, I think pension funds and insurance firms can be encouraged to do local investments, so that that way the government can also get to raise more revenue. Lastly, on my parting shot, I think I'll talk about the implementation of laws. For sure, we need to give our laws, regulations, our legal framework an opportunity to operate. Today, we come up with a new policy, with a new law. 2 days later, we are amending the same. Yet we have not given it an opportunity to operate and see where the gaps are, so that we can carry out these amendments. Secondly, we have so many ratifications. We are members of so many treaties and conventions. That is enough for now. Let us implement that and see how far it can get us to. Lastly is to point fingers on the citizens. I mean, power belongs to the people. We are democracies, so power belongs to the people. During electioneering periods, when you get to tolerate politics of survival, politics of tokenism, believe you me, you'll feel the effects once those people get into power. There will not be any political will, any political goodwill to implement laws and do the work for the citizens.
Thank you so very much, Comrade Diana Muchoge.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the panel panelists for very insightful feedback. I want to start with a success story, and I will point out to Algeria that is doing very well in terms of utilizing domestic resource mobilization. There's free education up to university in Algeria. They have free healthcare, and also low-cost healthcare if you're going to use private hospitals. So it's actually a shining example to show that it's possible. And as my fellow panelists have said, it's all about good governance. It's all about having the right leaders in place, actually, who are able to actually utilize public services in the right way. And then also in terms of can we do something? Do we give up? I'd like to really encourage us with what is happening right now in Africa. I'm sure you know that this year, Africa for the first time hosted the G20 presidency. That is something to be very proud of because the G20 has never come to Africa. South Africa hosted the G20. South Africa has actually been very upfront in terms of the demands coming from the African continent. They have failed in some places, but we have to acknowledge that it's a huge success to have South Africa, an African country, actually leading conversations in G20, which is very dominated by developed countries. And then another win would be the Africa Union being a member of the G20. Again, another very big win for the continent. And then looking at where we are coming from, where previously Africa had no voice, Africa had no representation, Africa used to be discussed, but now Africa is leading in terms of the policy decisions at the global level, which will also impact us at the national and the regional level. Let us not take for granted the work that the Africa Group has done tirelessly to push for an African position for the UN Tax Convention, which has really been well spoken to here. So let's not take for granted what the leadership of the Africa Union and what member states are doing in pushing for better reforms, in pushing for a reform of the global financial architecture. And having the privilege to attend these negotiations, we've been able to see Africa pushing back to the global powers. So there's hope. It's not in vain, and we'll be able to see the fruits, I'm sure, as we proceed. So just to conclude, debt and tax are human rights issues, and just to add to what Comrade James here has said, we should not be fixated on statistics. We have seen how debt servicing actually impacts on social services through lack of medicines in hospitals, the issue of no payment of doctors. So the EAC should be able to prioritize not servicing debt, but prioritize putting that money into social service spending, prioritize actually having an allocation in the budget for social service spending. And as citizens, I would like to reiterate what has been said here. Citizens need to hold the government accountable in terms of how are you using this money, whether it's borrowed funds or whatever amount of funds. How is the government utilizing this money? So citizens should be able to hold governments to account and also participate in budget-making processes at the EAC level. They should be able to participate in the budget-making process. They should be able to ensure that their needs are actually represented in the budgets and that governments are financing the needs and the priorities of the citizens. So PFM legislation, when properly applied and domesticated, will ensure service delivery and enhance transparency and accountability of public finances. Good public financial management has the power to reduce poverty, and therefore available resources must be deployed prudently for robust service delivery in the region. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lastly, we are having Mr. Aloysius Chitengo close this.
One of the question was asking taxing multinational source Why aren't we taxing at source? One is the double taxation treaties you have signed between your country and the other country. Chances are high that you have DTAs that are giving the right to taxation on the resident based than the source based. So if that is the way you are going to trade off your taxing right. Secondly, the transfer pricing regulation dealing with or which requires subsidiaries or companies that are affiliated to trade at the arm's length principle. You find that even if it is like that, the market economy does not cater. You find that someone can do trade with an affiliate, and for you are asking, how can we determine, do we have the data to inform what could be the reasonable market price? And you find that you don't have that data, you cannot access that data, and when you go to the OECD to access that data, they are going to tell you, do you have data privacy? Do you have data protection measures that are accredited for us to give you that data? That's why members are going for the automatic exchange of information to see that they can tap into that opportunity. And a call for the UN Tax Convention to have the database at the UN, because the challenge of accessing that data for comparison purpose makes even our countries to say, okay, let us just ignore, and then you will not be in position to tax. The thin capitalization, where multinationals are borrowing from affiliates across, and you know that in Uganda we don't tax debt. So they borrow from affiliates with lower taxing rate. And that means if they are going to charge you 5% on the interest when you take it to maybe Mauritius or Cayman Islands, it means that 5% you're going to remain with 95%. You are almost not being taxed. So you find that the way we have agreed or signed agreements between and the current state of the provisions within the law does not give us the opportunity to tax multinationals at source. And I'm going to combine it with someone who was asking how far have we pushed for source-based taxation. And to me, I think as Siatini and under the Tax Justice Alliance Uganda, we have tried to provide alternative tax proposals, and we advocated since 2014 telling the government to terminate and renegotiate. But even since then, the Netherlands-Uganda double taxation treaty has not been concluded. So other countries, before we achieve the UN Tax Convention, can we terminate and renegotiate some of these provisions? Because there are two provisions, there are two model double taxation treaties we are using, the OECD double taxation model treaty and the UN double taxation model treaty. But we find that all our domestic double taxation treaties are combining the two. If you don't have the OECD, you have the UN. And that means chances are high that you are going to lose out, because you are negotiating with high capital exporting countries. And they have, most of the time, they have their text which we are negotiating. Actually, we had agreed to come up with the East African double taxation model treaty, but it was only Rwanda which ratified. And now it is under review. So you find that we would have used our text to negotiate, but we don't have a text to negotiate. So that one is also another problem. And actually, we need also to look at, there is what they call the treaty shopping, where countries just say, okay, there is an opportunity of the treaty agreement with Mauritius and Uganda, or with Zambia and Uganda, and I can use, as a Ugandan, I can go to Mauritius, I can go to Zambia and say, I'm originating from Zambia to benefit from the treaty opportunities or the treaty benefits that are between Uganda and Zambia, between Uganda and Mauritius. So you might find that even those we call multinationals are also ours, coming from home to benefit from those treaty benefits. And that's why some people say, okay, taxes are not something which you consider for investors, but that one we need also to check. So someone was saying that we in terms of gold, and I think my colleagues have tried to look at that, many of African countries have failed to harmonize or to actually domesticate effectively the Africa mining vision, which requires us to do mineral beneficiation or value addition. And when you look at the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative report of Uganda, you're going to see there is a section or a sentence in that document which shows that some of raw materials are exported without value addition. So how will you be in position to add value in terms of creating industrial development, in terms of getting the opportunity to tap into the technology transfer and skill transfer? And then, because we have a number of provisions and conventions that are helping us to align ourselves, but we have not. And to me, I think if we can do that, we can be in position to have value. Someone was talking about, I think it was Dr. Muhumuza, that gold, we don't even levy royalties on gold. What are you talking about? And then you forgot of what is happening in terms of decommissioning. You go down there, the pits are empty, and we could have used those money for decommissioning, but even we don't have a decommissioning plan. Most of them, they are not accessible. As I'm finalizing with the question, someone also, my colleague, were able to talk about the money, and I was trying to look at how are we scoring as Uganda Revenue Authority in terms of revenue collection. 2020, 2021, we had 19. We collected 19 plus. 2020 to 2021, 2022, we collected 21. 2022, 2023, we collected 25. 2023, 2024, we collected 27. 2024, 2025, we collected 31. Don't we have revenue? The challenge we have even was on the aspect, we agreed on fiscal consolidation with 3 pillars. The first pillar is checking on nugatory expenditure. They have talked about the ministries and advisors we have, the cars that are running every time, and then we failed on that. Reducing on borrowing, the member of parliament told you they passed 9, and I think every week there are new borrowing approvals that are put before the parliament. We failed even when it comes to reducing on our borrowing. When it comes to the deficit budget, which we are supposed to reduce, just look at what we are supposed to collect. The last year, we anticipated that we are going up, is it 72 trillion? And then we are supposed to collect 30, which was a projection. That means our deficit in budget is worse and alarming. So to me, I think we have the money, but how we are using the money is the issue which we have to look at and ensure that the little we get is put into good use, but also we are able to invest that money in productive sectors that can enable the government to generate revenue. The other swap, or what they call the structural adjustment program arrangement or liberalization and privatization, we need to check it to ensure that government do invest where we can get the money. Someone was talking about water. What is hindering Uganda to ensure that each and every house has water, piped water, and then you tax them? Which is hindering Uganda to ensure that each and every household has yaka, electricity of yaka, so that you can tap from that money? You are investing. And at the end of the day, in the long run, you'll be in position to get money. Where someone was talking about the priorities, where are we putting our priorities? In revenue mobilization, now and in the future. As I'm summarizing, if I talk about like the parting shots, I was looking at, we talked about the issues of DRM. To me, I think we just look at how can we ensure that we strengthen where need is needed. What is the problem with tax administration which we can work on? The TADAD project, I think some of us are under the TADAD, which is part of the World Bank IMF. The TADAD project is giving us where the problem is. Can we strengthen our tax administration to collect more revenue? And when it comes to the debt, can we ensure that we borrow money for already funded, projects that are ready to implement? Because we are ending up, and you can be surprised looking at your minister saying that we have allocated this amount of money for commitment fees. And you knew that the project is not ready, so why should you go to borrow money when you don't have what? A ready project. Secondly, we need to strengthen our negotiators from the tax perspective, but also even from the debt perspective. And now when it comes to the UN Tax Convention, we need to strengthen them, but make sure that they are funded to be able to be there to negotiate on our behalf for what we can call a negotiation, for what we can consider something right for us. Because if they are not there, we will be forced or challenged when it comes to domestication of these laws effectively, because you don't know where even you can put it in your domestic laws. So lastly is on capacity building. So to me, I think we need our civil societies to ensure that we support government in capacity building, especially now our leaders, the member of parliament. I know new members are going to come on board. There are opportunities for committees to support, but we need to build their capacity. You can ask them, what is a DTA? What is a tax incentive? Now on the current going debate on UN Tax Convention, what is it? So to me, I think we need also to look at how can we support our policymakers to understand, because they play a key role in the decisions that affect the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Aloysius Chitengo, for bringing it all together. A round of applause for the panelists. Thank you so much. With all this wisdom and insights, why are we not changing the world? What's the missing link? I think we can answer that question later, because this conversation will continue even beyond this regional meeting.
Now, a round of applause to Herbert. He has been requesting us to clap for others, but Herbert, we thank you very much for the great work that nobody else would have done better. Herbert, before I give the closing remarks, I would request Carol to give a microphone to my colleague. We have an MP in the House, Honorable Agnes, to say a statement before I say something. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chibalia. Dear colleagues, my name is Agnes Taka, the woman member of Parliament, Mujili District, and I happen to sit on the same committee with Honorable Chibalia of National Economy. I'm happy that I've been part of this discussion and I've really enjoyed it. And I want to salute all of you in the room for speaking out. And I've experienced government from the lowest level up to Parliament. And when they were speaking about the leaking bucket, and people were asking where are the resources, I could see that bucket. We have resources. Even from the lowest tax collection level of a parish, the bucket is leaking. At sub-county, at district, and everywhere in parastatos, the bucket is leaking, and it's the biggest challenge that we have now. I want to say that as Parliament, I think we remain the biggest arm of government that takes criticism, and because it is the arm that houses individuals trusted by the people. So they have hope that that is where their power lies. However, I want us to have a reflection that parliaments have come and gone, and the attrition rate is high. Why? Because each time, each parliament that comes, the citizen feel betrayed. But still, they continue comparing parliaments, and they say the parliament has deteriorated. What is the problem? Is it the people that we send there? I think we need to think a lot about this and know where the problem is so that we tackle that point. It cannot be that every individual that is coming to parliament is problematic and not willing to serve the people. Therefore, let us continue speaking out. Probably as we go on, we cannot take away the contribution of His Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda in the transformation of our country, and of course the East African community. But I think we are now held between transformation between the revolution and the transformation from democracy to a real developed democracy and a developed economy, in my view. So there we are. Let us continue speaking out and praying that other leaders come to take us where we want to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Agnes. You have heard her. I need to join the colleagues in thanking, to begin with, this year team. We are proud of you, and we thank you so much for leading the line. We need to thank our funders, the Akonia, Tax Justice Network Africa. Please, we are very grateful. Then from Government, Ministry of Finance, I think the colleague left, but our regards should be passed over. The Financial Intelligence Authority, I think equally left, but regards should be passed over. Uganda Revenue Authority, my sister, I've seen her there. Please, we are very grateful. The Tax Justice Alliance Uganda, we appreciate it greatly. And all members of the Tax Justice Alliance, we appreciate. Then equally, in the same line, we need to thank members of parliament that have really accorded time to this workshop. We need to thank the Uganda Parliamentary Network on illicit financial flows. We need to thank you all. Our third estate, the media, there is no way we can have the message that has been passed over unless you are here to make sure you amplify and have it there. We need to thank everybody, everyone in your capacity. We need to thank you for really making this workshop and making everything reach where we are. My few words are, your question would be, how did we reach where we are? If some years ago, I was looking at some few people that could be older than me here. In the years, Busoga Growers is one of the area, the cooperative that was in my place. They told us Busoga Growers was lending in Malaysia and Korea money. Going in history, Uganda at its time used also to lend money to other countries. But these economies have grown more than us. What is the problem? Where is the missing link? When Herbert was emphasizing here, whatever we say, how do we mobilize resources domestically? The tax is an issue. We need to tax. But what are we taxing? Because the tax must be progressive. The tax must be seen to stimulate production. What are we taxing? Can we wake up as a government one day, come up with the programs of production that can give us 2-3 years where we shall have a better tax base and we are in position to tax people without really hanging them. I was sharing with somebody and I said, what pains some of us is Parliament is the punching bag. Everybody will abuse Parliament. Everybody will abuse a member of Parliament. Wherever you pass, they will not even value you. You are the problem. People are suffering because of Parliament. Isn't it so? But at the same time, the eyes are on Parliament. Every presenter will say, we are looking onto you. Everybody, everywhere you find Parliament. Where is the problem? I don't want to be deceived that there are no brains in Parliament. Parliament has any cream that you wanted to find. Any cream. If you wanted to go in academia, the professors are there. Most of these MPs that we have now, we are in those shoes. They have been technical officers elsewhere. At times we ask ourselves, where is the problem? Aggie has just been saying, why is it that every parliament that comes, they say deteriorating? How come that the voters vote people that continue sinking the parliament? Where is the problem? People who are in parliament went to school. I get challenges as a person. I was a guild president in Makerere. If anybody wanted to find one of the best guild presidents ever produced by Makerere, where is the problem? I was with Gobi, the PSST, in class when we are doing masters in economic policy and planning. Where is the problem? Why is parliament the problem ever? So we need to see inwardly, look at ourselves. Where are our priorities? What are we not doing right and what are we doing right? The other day I was saying, I wish we could have space to determine the budget allocation. Maybe possibly also in the column of the budget now, we put some money for NGO programs because the voters now can only listen to NGOs. They are no longer interested in listening to politicians. If you have any message to pass over, let it go through the NGOs. The civil society organizations, they are the ones that will have message reach the voters. But a politician, Chibali has come, they will all come in a number that you can't understand. But they are only interested in one thing. Give them their transport refund. If you make you give them transport refund before they settle, you will not have anybody in the room. You get it? So technically, as we are doing this, is it the budget that we are allocating wrongly? We are supposed to have the bottom-up budgeting. By now, I think we have the up-bottom budgeting. Because when we are budgeting, we are supposed to listen to the voices of the people, as they used to tell us that the voices of the people should be the ruling force of government. We are supposed to listen to the voices of the people, take what they are saying, inform our budget. We got to come up with a budget when it's really bottom-up. But I think this time, we have to look at what we want to do, where we want to go, then eventually we shall be there. A colleague was talking about the bailouts. Why should you bail out to somebody who has money? Why? Some people were hesitant. You don't want to hear some names. But me, I'm a politician, and I own the words and the names I want to mention. You get it? And Madam Jenny, they will not take a Siatini to be responsible for my words because they invited me and they know. I say these words when I'm here. I say these words when I'm in parliament. I even say them wherever I am. What is the reason for giving Sudiru money? What is the reason? What is the reason for giving Amina money every time in the budget? 170 billion, 270 billion. What is the reason? She has never produced any acre of sugarcane. Why? We invest, all of you know that we injected money in our Commonwealth Hall in Munyonyo. Munyonyo is a Commonwealth resort. But URA is here. I don't want to say so. Do we have any books where we have any income? The other day we were in Parliament and the file for Commonwealth Resort had disappeared. Ministry of Finance is here. The file is not there. How much money did we invest? Every year we invest money. Why should we? That you are giving money this and that. So, as a politician, I say these words because I'm at pain that we are blamed for not doing the right things. Yet, amidst our hearts and mind, we feel we have the capacity to do right things. But somewhere, somehow, we are fixed. We can't really do much. So it pains. It pains. You watch the TV. The other day we were telling government, if we collected 31 trillion, why are we making a budget of 72 trillion? Logically, if we collected 31, why are we making a budget of that? But it's simply because some people want to take advantage of that and find where to have the money. The loans that we are crying over every time, are these loans productive? Do they go to the right channel? Do they do the right work? The people that go to negotiate these loans, do they go with good intentions? How do you negotiate a loan that will really sink the country? The people that are going to negotiate, are they the right people? Are they going with goodwill? You go to negotiate a loan because you want your kickback somewhere. Why do you go for commercial loans when you have a window? The other day we are asking, how do you acquire a loan without opening space for competition? You only pick one company and say, Stanchard, you are giving us this money to do ABCD. Under which window? You get it? There's some people here, we are blaming the laws and the policies we have. We have good policies, we have good laws, but are they put in place? Is there anybody to enforce them? One of the challenges we have is the rule of law, but we shall fix that another day. So in so doing, there are things that are really painful. The contractor that you have given a contract to do some work, is he the worthy contractor? These are some of the things that pain us. But at the end of the day, civil society, the public, the citizen, the voters, the problem will be Parliament. If you ask anybody tomorrow, what is the problem of this country? Parliament. Can we close the Parliament? Everybody will say yes. Do a referendum and see. If you do a referendum and say, can we close the Parliament? Everybody will say yes. Yet we believe and we assume we are people's representatives. But how do we represent people who are not happy? People who are not proud of us? People who feel we are doing a disservice, we are a problem to them. In fact, this country believes, all citizens believe we are a liability. No, you will not find citizens who believe we can do something better. No. May I have a feeling? Let us set our priorities right. Where is our comparative advantage? In whichever region. Where is our comparative advantage? What can we do better? Where should we channel the resources? But Uganda is here, is there, is here, is here. If somebody wanted to know what Uganda can do best or produce best, what is it? At least those years of Idi Amin, we had the copper, they could say, copper, cotton, and coffee. Now what do we have? What is our... If you went to class and asked the cash crop of Uganda, what is it? What do we have best? People were talking about gold here. When somebody mentioned gold, Hilda got concerned and said somebody is made, but is there evidence? At Parliament, we have complained. the URA person is there. What is the tax on the kilo of gold? Do you know it? How can what is the tax on the kilo of gold? It's embarrassing and shaming that the most precious metal in Uganda, So let us have some programs, let us have things that can really put us in a better place, that can make us move over to another stage. Everybody has cried about corruption. Who are the key players in corruption? They will only tell you Parliament. Yet corruption in this country is a virus. I don't know how we shall handle, how we shall do this and the other, but we have really lost it. We are really in a wrong place. We don't know to do. We don't know what to do. We don't know where to go. At the end of the day, we must fix it. We must fix it. My request is, how do we collectively, one, handle the problem of mindset change in our smaller citizens? Because the citizens down there, much as they blame Parliament, also what they do and their reasoning and their focus is different. You get it? If we have to generate resources, if we have to domestically mobilize resources, we must involve the citizens at all levels to participate in the sectors of production at different levels. So how do we stimulate them, one, to love what they are doing and participate in production sectors? We must fight the mindset change issue. But this can only now be done by NGOs. The trust in this country, the trust in Wananchi, the trust in Ugandans can only be in civil societies. People have lost the trust in politicians. They are there because politicians must exist. They go to vote because they know they must vote. If you give them an alternative, they would not vote otherwise. Otherwise, let's see how best we can support, we can strengthen, we can give better space to NGOs so that they can help us to really talk to Ugandans. You also, your voice, maybe the high authority would hear your voice. I wish he could give you platform and you address him and tell him some of these things. I wish he could give you the platform. Maybe some things would change. You see in this country, a leadership of Siatini, and this is not yours, it's mine as a politician. In this country, if you want something to move and to exist and happen, it's only the head of state. One man. Colleagues from other countries, we don't want to give examples of your countries because we may not be well informed about what is in your country. But some of us, me as a politician, I know what is in my country. That is why I can speak with authority. But if he could help me and give platform to NGOs leadership, and he listens to them, there are many things that can change. There are many things that can be achieved. The last word is, as you see us politicians, don't think that we are insensitive to the cry of the public. No, we are not insensitive. I was discussing with Hilda, and I was telling her I'm changing from the world of politics. I also want to go to the NGO world and see how it feels to squeeze the politicians this side when I'm the other side. We are not insensitive. We feel for people. We wish people well. We wish to see a better country. But the factors, as Herbert was asking, where is the missing link? It's a question to everybody. Where is the missing link? What are we not doing right that we are supposed to do right? Who is responsible for all the cry? Who is responsible for the suffering? Who is not doing what he is supposed to do? Let everybody do his part. Let everybody do what he is supposed to do. Possibly we shall have a better Uganda. We shall leave this world. We shall leave this nation in a better position that we found it. I wish everybody a better day. I wish everybody a safe journey wherever he's going back. And I need to re-echo our great thanks to Siatini for making this workshop, for making this conference be realized reach where it is and get achieved. We are grateful. We can't thank you beyond there. We can't thank you enough, but we need to thank everybody. Thank you very much. May God bless you all.
A better round of applause for Honorable Henry Morris Kivalia. Thanks to all of us who are here. Thanks to all the partners of Siatini. Thanks to the media team. Thanks to the Lens media team. Thanks to the hotel in absentia because they are not here. We wish all of you journey masses to your final destinations. And this is where we end our regional meeting. But we are not ending the discussion. Let's continue to engage online. Thank you so much.